I'm the same as you, Derek, because while last year could have ended in a real bad taste in the mouth, especially if we had not gotten that fourth down, oof, it ended in a sweet manner. But yeah, I'm ready to kick off the next season and see what's going to go on, because there's question marks, but there's a lot of positivity, obviously.
To be real honest, I'm highly optimistic this year. I think, there's a lot of Ducks fans who join me. We're able to see some of the additions we have in the transfer portal. Obviously, so we had a nice recruiting class last year come in. I think we're going to see improvements here. I think anything other than, a drastic shift in our defense would be a failure. If we have any expectation of talking, Pac-12 championship game, maybe into the college football playoff potentially, that defense has to get shored up for sure. I think, too many big plays. Third down defense was absolutely atrocious. Missed tackles, bottom half of the country. I think, there's a lot of making up to do, and I think we have the right personnel to do it, though.
What do you think, Spaz? Because I know obviously it's been a long off season.
Definitely right with Derek. It's like if we want anything near a Pac-12 title or a CFP shot or any of that, defense has definitely got to improve, and the line's got to protect Bo this year. We can't have a Washington injury at the end of the year like we did last year.
And I know offensive line, getting right into it, Spaz, here, that's one of the biggest question marks, people have around this Oregon Ducks roster. We see a massive amount of turnover. I mean, it's no secret. We look at our depth chart last year at this time compared to what we expect to see come Saturday. It's not even close to the same unit. With that being said, I think it's, highly beneficial. We brought in some dudes, with Junior Angelau from Texas. That man has 34 career starts under his belt. Nishad Slaughter, 30 games started at ECU. So it's not like we're bringing in these scrubs here. And obviously we're talking about Cornelius here, who is arguably the biggest FCS transfer in this year's cycle. So I think where we are lacking in experience from a Ducks perspective, I do think we have the dudes who could, keep this continuation of the O-line rolling. I like, we're going to have Connerly looking at this left tackle here, former 5-star recruit. That man's been in our program a couple of years, and we've definitely seen flashes of what he can do. So I'm excited for him to get his chance. And that kind of goes with Jackson Powers Johnson as well. That man has been with the program here, and we've heard nothing but good things come out of camps about that man. So I'm highly excited to see him get a shot as well.
And let's pull this up too, because that's it. You were talking about Cornelius. He was FCS, but he was the number one out of Rhode Island, and the Ducks landed him, and a lot of people did. And I wish this ad would go away. Thank you. So, and Oregon always does rotates a lot of offensive linemen. So those guys may not have been starters, but they have a lot of playing experience. It was just about gelling together. But that is one of the biggest question marks, is how the O-line will hold up, because you lose 4 guys on that line. That's not anything small. I mean, that's a significant amount of lost starts. So
absolutely, that hurts.
So this is just the projected, as we talked about. This is the projected starting line, which I think is pretty reasonable. You've got Connerly Jr. and Junior Angelau, of course, Jackson Powers Johnson, Stephen Jones, of course, stepping into those roles like full time now, and Johnny Cornelius, of course. And I mean, you could almost add Terrence Ferguson as kind of the sixth guy as a tight end for blocking, and that makes sense because he's the most experienced by far in our tight end group.
Sure. And I do think it is important, to kind of not disregard the value that, Marcus Harper and George Silva provide. They have been with the program a couple of years here. They have plugged in where they have needed to. So, it's kind of nice to know that even in your depth positions, we're kind of looking at some of these dudes who do have some experience and have been within the system for a little bit here.
And I have to point out to anyone who's watching this and stuff, we say this is a projected line because Oregon, as you noted to me earlier, Derek, they don't put out the first week. They don't put out a first string depth chart or anything usually. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they like to play it that way for whatever reasons, figure guys out, or just keep a mystery. We're going to get into this Portland State, but I think this is a a reasonable projection right now as to like the starters.
I agree. I think, just going up and down it, I would not be shocked in any capacity to see this being our starting lineup kind of going forward. So we'll see how that plays out. It's a nice little test here against Portland State, nice FCS opponent that hopefully, everybody can get their looks in.
So, Derek, is this one directed at you? Just your guy? HR picking stuff?
No, HR picking stuff is he's always in here. He's always all over the place. He's all over the place. What do you think, Spaz? Is there anything in this projected depth chart that kind of surprises you, maybe potentially? I don't think you've gone to go over a whole lot yet, but
I don't. So right now, I think it's we're pretty well set at where we probably thought we were at most places. The only thing would be is if somebody jumps, if Novastad or the other Thomas or whatever jumps, Ty would be the only real shock to me. But yet it wouldn't be a shock because the way Ty performed was not very good.
Yeah, they've said he's made strides, but I think every year we hear that, and unfortunately, then he gets into game times, and they don't trust him, or he gets everything tipped and intercepted. I'm a little surprised. Like I think we talked about it briefly earlier. I'm a little surprised Austin Novastad immediately skipped the redshirt freshman. And I don't know a whole lot about Marcus Sanders. I don't know if you guys know a whole lot about Marcus Sanders. He's kind of one of those quarterbacks that's there, but you never really hear about him. I think Novastad just got most of the attention because he was the Baylor flip.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Marcus Sanders is kind of a relative unknown right now. That from my book,
defensively, I mean, sub movement. Obviously, we've got Kyrie Jackson allegedly over Tyquez Bridges. If this stands true, that's not a big shock. I guess in some ways that's not a huge shock. Brian Addison gets swapped, basically.
Yeah.
Steve Stevens gets swapped. Dante Manning gets swapped. And Jaleel Florence gets swapped. If that stands true. And I guess to me, that would say system. The type of player that needs to be in the system, because this is why we had so many huge just busts in the secondary last year.
Oh, absolutely. I think, we had some absolutely glaring holes that it doesn't take an Oregon Duck fan to realize. And I think, the portal is meant to be overall more of a Band-Aid to the program than anything else. And I think Lanning and co absolutely knocked this one out of the park in terms of who they were able to bring in, kind of the roles that these guys are used to playing and the roles that they're going to be expected to play here at Oregon. So I am ecstatic to kind of see this defense hit the field, even against Portland State. I'm excited to see some of the schematic differences that we're going to see as well.
Yeah, and I think Manning really improved by the end of the year last year. I thought he played exceptional the last couple of games. And so we'll see, how much he gets to play and how much he gets overtaken. But I think he could still be a solid, second corner guy and whatnot, and can fill the experience gap.
Yep, real high recruit coming out of high school. We're just kind of waiting to see him kind of realize that potential that we all thought we were getting when he signed. I think it's there, though. That man, he definitely showed some flashes. He showed some flashes of elite corner play. It's just, we need that consistency in this Duck secondary. So hopefully year 3 is the year for Mr. Manning here.
And I think a lot of these positions are up for grabs. Maybe.
I'm also excited to see what the kid that switched to linebacker.
Oh, it's no, they brought him down from safety, right?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
yeah. I was like,
His last year he played safety, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was in our secondary the year before. One thing that's really sticking out to me, the more I'm kind of staring at this projected depth chart here, is strictly the depth that we have. I mean, just looking in that defense, there's a lot of depth there, and especially in the secondary. Obviously we added a lot of transfer pieces, and down here we see Cole Martin coming in, who's a freshman, which is a little bit different here. But even these guys who are sitting, second string as we are at this very moment here, they have experience. These aren't no-name dudes coming off the bench just trying to make a name for themselves.
no,
Yeah.
I agree too. I'm actually surprised at the depth for the losses that we got, but how well they did bringing in guys. Like, because there's some impressive names here, and then you even look behind him, and you go, he's behind that guy. Like, so that shows, I think, the depth that they're starting to build even more than before. Because before, you look at like our receivers over the years, and you go, all right, we've got 3 to 4 really good guys, and now you could argue there's 6 or 7 potentially really, really good guys.
Absolutely. And that's, not even including some of the development that I think we're going to see in that wide receiver room as well. So again, wide receiver is a position of strength, in my opinion here. I know a lot of people had the idea that it was going to be kind of one of those glaring holes coming into the season, but I think just with the products you bring in to address the wide receiver issue, looking at this depth chart, I feel really good about where we're sitting at. When we have 5 to 6 guys who I would trust with the ball in their hands at all times, I think I like where we're at.
You brought in what, three transfer receivers?
3 transfer receivers. Yeah, we got as Johnson and Gary Bryant Jr.
Holton and Gary Bryant.
Yep.
I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, and then you got also
Kenyon Sadiq is wasn't he a 5-star recruit at the tight end position?
He was a high 4, but yeah, he was a highly touted after tight end coming out of high school. I believe he was the number 1 player out of Idaho when he came out. And that's a name I know they had said, just watching some interviews and stuff, that there was a little development that needed to happen there. And, he needed to become a little more familiar with the system that he's going to be running. But I do think in time, we're going to see him play a factor here. I think, we might see him periodically. But I do think we see him this year. I think we're going to get small flashes.
I mean, just look at this name right here. This is a name. I'm surprised he's still on the roster.
He's one of those guys.
I have not heard his name, I don't think, in a year and a half. Yeah. At least a season and a half. Josh Delgado is still on our roster.
Props to that man for sticking it out. I love to see it.
I love guys like that. I love guys like if Ty doesn't win the job next year, if he sticks around and says, I'll be the second hand man, props to him. Maybe he just loves where he's at, and he's like, hey, it's not working. Okay. I mean, props to him just sticking it out. I like guys like that. They don't just go, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here.
Ben, just in looking at, the 3rd string depth chart here, one name that I want fans to kind of keep an eye out for is Devin Jackson in that linebacker slot. Now, Devin Jackson, a lot of people know, on the team last year, very, very, very limited roles. But coming into camp, this man put on 20 pounds of muscle, supposedly flying around the field right now and making a real nice name for himself in that linebacker room. So even though, we're kind of sitting here in a position where depth is our friend at this point, I think we're going to see a little more of Devin Jackson than a lot of Duck fans think this year. So get ready for that, guys.
Well, that's good. Of course, he's behind Boss, so that's not a surprise, or Jamal Hill.
Oh, absolutely.
He's only a redshirt freshman, so it's not like he's been there for 3 or 4 years either. He's still. This is really his true first year